Well, it's time for me to force my voice as low as I can possibly get it. Richard Sterban, good morning to you. Sounds affected somehow, doesn't it?
Pardon?
I sound affected somehow when I try to do that. How have you been?
I've been just fine. We've been keeping extremely busy.
I bet you have. The Oak Ridge Boys are going to be coming to ISU's Braden Auditorium on the 18th. That's a week from next Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
That's correct. A week from this coming Sunday.
Yeah, a week from this coming Sunday. He'll be in concert. I found this interesting. When you were a youngster, you sang voice soprano.
That's correct. Like most young boys, I guess all young boys really, my voice was very high, and when I was about 12, between 12 and 13 years old, my voice started to change rapidly. And I kind of did not go through the typical period of time that a lot of young boys go through, where it takes 6 months to a year for the voice to change, and their voice gets kind of squeaky, and then one minute it's high, then it's low, and whatever. But it seems like mine almost happened to me overnight.
I'm really curious about this. Does your family have low voices?
Relatively low. I have a brother who has a relatively low voice, but he's not a singer at all, so, it'd be difficult to really determine whether he could be a bass singer or not. But, yeah, my father had a relatively low voice also, but not like mine.
Yeah. There are some groups that sing, and, I'm thinking about maybe brother groups or sister groups. They all sort of can sing all the different parts. That's really not the case with the Oak Ridge Boys, is it?
Well, we occasionally will swap some parts around, but I don't think there's anybody else that can really do my part.
Yeah. You couldn't sing a high part if you had to, though.
You're absolutely right. I'd have a problem trying to sing Joe's part, especially.
There are sound systems now that are very dynamic, and the fidelity and all that kind of thing is just incredible, even for extremely large situations, and that's the kind of place you find yourself performing. But it seems to me we went through a period where the bass was really featured. I can think of Elvis doing concerts, and I can't remember who sang bass for him when he went out, but it was almost one of those deals where your chest would vibrate from the note, and you really fit that category too, don't you?
Well, I guess when you look at what's happening in country music today, it's probably myself and Harold Reed. The Stattlers were probably the two most well-known and most prominent bass singers that are happening in our industry, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Do you consciously try to make it go down even deeper sometimes, though? Is that the mark of a great bass singer?
Well, I think it's just something that has just come natural with me over the years. It's just come kind of naturally, the more you sing, the older you get, the more resonant your voice becomes, and it just gets deeper with age. And I think that I probably do sing lower now than I did even a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't mean to dwell on bass singers necessarily, although that should be your interest, I guess. But I was thinking they really weren't featured maybe like they are in music today for a long time.
Well, I think those things, as you say, may go in cycles. I remember as a boy, in the early days of rock and roll, and Elvis was a primary example. He always had bass singers on his records. Mm-hmm. And the early rock and roll groups, the 50s, they sure had, a lot of bass singers, and those groups were, in later years, the rock music kind of got away from that, but I think now you're kind of hearing it in country. Yeah.
Now, this may be where our similarities as far as tastes are varying, or I shouldn't say taste, but maybe our upbringing is a little different. Do you remember a guy by the name of Larry Hooper on the old Lawrence Welk show?
I sure do. As a boy, he certainly was an idol of mine. I used to watch that show religiously, mainly to hear that guy sing low.
Yeah,
the bass singers have always fascinated me personally.
I remember a song, "Oh Happy Day" or something he used to do and get way down there. Yeah. But enough of that. The Oak Ridge Boys are enjoying tremendous success. It's certainly one of the most successful quartets around, and there has to be a reason for that. Do you guys get along good together?
Well, I think we are the best of friends, and we do get along very well. We do have our differences, don't get me wrong. And occasionally one of those differences will get publicized in the press. But I think the real key is that we have learned to settle our differences. We have learned that what we do as the Oak Ridge Boys is much more important than any difference we might have between ourselves. And we've learned to keep that in its right perspective and learn to not let a difference that we might have between us affect our music or affect our stage show. We've learned to settle the differences and concentrate on what is the most important thing, and that is the music. The music is the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. I was reading some of the literature that's been published on you guys, and of course William Lee Golden says he hopes that the Oak Ridge Boys are remembered for their harmony above all else. He came up with a single recently that was a doggone good song. Does that bother the rest of you as far as the group are concerned?
Well, I think, at first when he told us he was doing a solo project, I think maybe it's human nature. I don't know. I think we all immediately had a little bit of a resistance to it. We were all afraid that what he was doing quite possibly might detract from what we were doing as a group, or possibly cause some confusion or whatever. But I think after we all sat back and realized, what was happening, I think we all understood, and we all really did support his project. In fact, we are singing on a couple of the songs on the album, on his solo album. So I think, we tried to lend our support in every way that we possibly could. And unfortunate for Golden, the album is a very good album, and the two singles that were released off of the album were very, very good singles. But unfortunately, they did not get the kind of exposure, the kind of airplay that he was hoping. And naturally, the album did not sell like he was hoping. But it is a very good product, and if people are interested in purchasing a good album, they should go out and buy that album, because it is an excellent album. William worked very hard on it and kind of showed a little bit of a different side of him, and showed that he can do some different things than he has shown so far in the Oak Ridge Boys.
Who's it that sits back and says, though, hey, let's keep this as a group? Oak Ridge Boys is the number one name, of course. Is there anybody that says, hey, we don't want you standing out so much. We don't want you to be a soloist or a single performer. We want everybody to shine in this group. Is there anybody that takes that responsibility?
I don't think that there's any one person that has that responsibility. Naturally, we have our manager and our agent and people that run our career. Jim Halsey is mainly the man that is in charge of that. But there again, I think that's a matter that's between the four of us. And if one person in our group decided that he no longer wanted to be here and wanted to be out on his own, I think the other three members would not try to stop that particular person in any way. Mm-hmm. I think the reason we've been able to enjoy the success that we've enjoyed to this point in our career is the fact that we have all pulled together, and we've all wanted to be here, and we've all wanted to make this work. And I think it comes right down to the four of us, and I think the four of us can be successful and go on and do a lot of good things in this business as long as the four of us decide that that's what we want to do. And I can speak for myself and tell you that I know that that's what I personally want to do for as long as that I possibly can do it. Yeah. And I really believe that all four of us feel that way.
I hope you are around a long time, although I don't believe any of you were the original Oak Ridge Boys anyway, are you?
No. In fact, we have a book this year coming out on the Oak Ridge Boys. It's called The Oak Ridge Boys, Our Story, and it will be out sometime in the latter part of April. It'll be getting to all the bookstores early in the month of May, and it delves into the history of the Oak Ridge Boys. And we've reading the drafts of this book, we've learned some things about ourselves, and our group does have a very fascinating history. And there are some 30 different changes in membership before the group actually got to the place where it is today with the four of us as we are today.
Right for a commercial, we're talking with Richard Sterban of the Oak Ridge Boys. Richard Sterban, I know you're interested in sports. In fact, maybe that was your first love. I've talked to a number of people. Roy Clark wanted to play baseball at one time. Found out that really wasn't his forte. Would that have been your choice if you hadn't sung?
The same thing could probably be said of me. I think when I was a small boy, like a lot of young boys, I dreamt about being a major league ball player, but I did not get to a very late stage in life when I realized that that was also not my forte. My talents did not necessarily lie in that area.
Well, Roy Clark bought a team, and I guess you're involved in at least a couple, aren't you?
I'm a part owner of 4 minor league baseball teams. The main team that really has my interest is the one that we have right in Nashville, the Nashville Sounds, which over the years that we've owned the team, 8 or 9 years now, has become one of the most successful franchises in all of minor league baseball. And we also own a team in Greensboro, North Carolina, one in Huntsville, Alabama, and a third team we just purchased this year in Wichita, Kansas. And it's just kind of a sideline of mine that I enjoy. I think everyone needs a diversion in life. Everyone needs a hobby, and my baseball teams, my sports teams are kind of my hobby. we have a nice little partnership. Conway Twitty is also one of the partners in our baseball teams, as well as Larry Gatlin and Jerry Reed.
Oddly enough, there's a similarity, I think, between sports teams and quartets or whatever, singing groups. You have to work as a team. It's interesting to see, we were talking about this one member maybe sticking out or trying to stick out further than the rest and upstage the rest of the group. Jim McMahon certainly has been been accused of that, when it comes to the Bears football team. And it's interesting to...
He's a different kind of a character, there's no doubt about that.
It's interesting to see him respond to questions on the different talk shows, saying that, hey, anything that one particular player does to draw attention to the Bears is really going to be good for the whole team. So I guess you can look at it that way as well.
Well, there's no question about it. Over the years, different people in our group have done different things. For example, just recently, Joe Bonswell, our tenor singer, sang on a record with Sawyer Brown. The record called "Let's Go Out Cattin'" or whatever. I think that's the title of it. A recent hit of theirs. And I think there again, stuff like that does nothing but just once again get the Oak Ridge Boys name out there in front of people. It's not the person that's doing that individually. It naturally gives them some individual exposure, but it also gives the group added exposure. And I think we've all learned years ago that when one person's doing something good, it really benefits all of us.
Yeah.
And we all sincerely feel that way.
There's another distinctive group you mentioned, Sawyer Brown. It's hard to be different anymore. I don't know what is the key, as far as you're concerned, Richard, to making a successful group. Obviously, the name Oak Ridge Boys was around there, but do you ever look at groups that are out there now and say, boy, that one's a good group, but I just don't know if they're going to make it?
Oh, yeah, I think we do that all the time. Over the years that we have been in this business, a lot of new acts have come into the business. And, in fact, we have believed in some of the new acts, and we've allowed some of these acts to open our show, in fact, because when we see a young act that we really believe in, we try to help them, because other people helped us when we were first coming into the business, and I don't think we would have made it as successfully as we have made it without the help of some other people, like Roy Clark, for example.
Yeah.
And so yes, we have watched some of the young acts come into the business, and I think you can tell, from watching what other people do, you can learn yourself from watching what people do right and what they do wrong, and we've learned what to do, I think, a lot of times from other people, and we've also learned from on a few occasions from watching other artists what not to do. You can learn from other people's mistakes, and you can learn to not make the same mistake yourself, and I think that's something that we tried to do.
In fact, I may be speaking out of turn here. I thought maybe they opened up for you. Did you partake in a group? In fact, there was a contest out in Colorado, the Marlboro contest or whatever, and there's a guy from Bloomington IL who has a band, Timothy P. and the Roll Route 3, who won that national contest out in the Rocky Mountains, and I thought they were going to open up for your group at one time or another. I may be wrong on that.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I can recall, when Lee Greenwood, for example, first started to, come into prominence in this business. For a whole year, he opened just about every one of our shows, and we had a good association with Lee. And then the following year, we kind of took Exile under our wing, so to speak, and they worked a lot of shows for us. This past year, we had the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, who's not really a new act, but they're attempting kind of like a second career, so to speak, and we try to help them. And here recently, we've been using the Forrester Sisters on a lot of our shows, and that has worked out real well. The female quartet and the male quartet makes for a kind of an interesting combination, and it's really added a nice touch to our show.
Sure does. We're going to talk about the show coming to ISU right after this. Richard Sterban and Mickey Mouse talking with you this morning. What a voice. That is...
Well, thank you, Ken. I think that's one of the reasons why I have the job that I have, is because of this voice. And so, thank the good Lord, it really is a God-given talent.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons I'm in Bloomington IL, I guess, the voice the voice that I have. It's fun talking to you about music, and, of course, everybody's interested in it. The show that's going to be coming to ISU is pretty much what people can expect, I would think. You have enough of a repertoire now that you almost have to do some, don't you, that people want to hear?
Well, we try to, fortunately, over the last several years, our career has gone very, very well. In fact, here in the spring of 1987, we will be celebrating our 10th year on country radio. We've had our first hit record we had in the spring of 1977, a song called "Y'all Come Back Saloon."
Oh yeah.
Over last 10 years. And we have a lot of records that people do now want to hear when they come and see the Oak Ridge Boys, and we do our best to try to get as many of those old songs on the show as possible. In fact,
You're going to do Elvira, aren't you?
Oh, you can count on that.
Yeah.
We try to put some of them in medley so we can try to get as many in as possible. We try to find a happy medium between getting those older songs on that people want to hear, but yet showing some of the newer stuff and the newer side of the Oak Ridge Boys as well.
Yeah. Now, we talked about some of the groups that open your show for. Are you going to be alone that night, or are you going to have an opening act?
Or do you know? I believe that we have Southern Pacific, I believe, is opening that show for us on Sunday. Now, I hope that I'm saying the right thing. I'm almost sure that they are on those dates with us next weekend.
Okay.
And I hope I'm, there again, I'm not actually sure about that, and I hope I'm saying the right thing.
In fact, do you even know where you are right now, Richard?
I do know where I am right now. I'm in Wilmar, Minnesota.
Okay. When you're on the road all the time, it's hard to remember sometimes. The fact of the matter is, we talked about some of the old familiar songs you guys are going to be doing. Going to be doing some new things, too, and in fact, there's a new album out soon, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. We've just recently completed our, if you can believe this, our 15th album.
Good heavens.
On MCA Records. And the first 14 albums were produced by one man. His name is Ron Chansey. And I think our track record, the history of what we've done with Ron kind of speaks for itself. We've had a great deal of success. We go home and look at the platinum albums, the double platinum album, and all the gold albums that we have hanging on our walls. You know, that indicates that we have had a great deal of success working together with Ron. But I think we got to a place in our career where we just felt it was time for a change. And so we decided to change producers, and this new album will have a brand new producer for the Oak Ridge Boys, a gentleman named Jimmy Bowen. And if you know anything at all about Nashville and the music coming out of Nashville, Jimmy Bowen is by far the leading producer in Nashville. And there really is no one else at this point really a close second to Jimmy. He's by far the leading producer in Nashville. Also happens to be the president of our record label, MCA Records. So I think we've made a very good move in acquiring the services of Jimmy. And he worked together with us, and we've just recently completed this album. It's an album called Where the Fast Lane Ends. That's the title. That's also the title of one of the songs on the album. Mm-hmm. And we have a new single that'll be coming out within the next 2 weeks. And it's a song called It Takes a Little Rain. And we're extremely excited about this album. The new single, as well as the album, kind of represents a back to the basics kind of a sound for the Oak Ridge Boys. We did not use any strings, we did not use any horns, any real fancy arrangements, but just we tried to find the best songs that we could find, and we have what we consider 10 solid, good songs, good, solid love songs that feature a lot of the good, solid harmony that is characteristic of the Oak Ridge Boys. And we just, it's like I say, kind of a back to the basics kind of a sound, and a new and refreshing sound, all recorded digitally with the latest recording techniques. And it's an album that we have worked extremely hard on, and it's kind of almost represents like a new era for the Oak Ridge Boys, and we're kind of excited to get this new music out there.
Okay, Where the Fast Lane Ends?
Where the Fast Lane Ends is the title of the album. The album itself will be out on February the 19th.
Yeah.
We have a new single that will be out within the next 2 weeks. I think the Monday after we play in Normal, Illinois, I think is the date that the radio stations are supposed to get that record, I believe. It will be the 19th of January.
You guys had a new Christmas album out this year, too, didn't you?
We did. We did have a new Christmas album, our second Christmas album, and it went extremely well for us.
And in fact, there you're talking about some splashy sounds, I think, with the strings and the horns and everything. Really, really good album. That
album, we felt, a lot of Christmas music is the kind of music where you want to put a lot of strings and horns and make some nice, pretty arrangements, and we did some fancy vocal things. And it turned out fairly well, and we were very pleased with the way it turned out, and it sold very well this past Christmas for us, too.
Thank God for Kids turned out to be a Christmas song, although I don't know if it was intended that way, was it?
Originally, when we first heard the song, it really was not a Christmas song. I think Eddie Raven, when he wrote the song, really did not intend to necessarily write a Christmas song, but we decided, children have a great deal to do with Christmas, so we decided to put it on our first Christmas album, and it really has kind of become really a standard for the Oak Ridge Boys. It for the last several years now, it's really been probably the highlight of our show in person all the time.
Yeah.
Good song.
You guys do great work, and I want to continue to wish you, all the successes that you deserve.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's been a pleasure talking with you and a real pleasure talking to your listeners. And we are looking forward to coming to normal. It's been a while since we have been there, and hopefully, I understand tickets are going fairly well. Hopefully we'll have a big crowd that day.
But don't wait too long.
Right.
Week from Sunday, the January 18th date, the Oak Ridge Boys in town at ISU's Braden Auditorium. Give the box office a call. Make sure you have your tickets for that night. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Ken.